What's up, everybody? It's Blair Johnson with the Badass Records podcast, welcoming you in for another episode. And this week's guest is Cole Bales of Blacklight Animals. You can find their stuff at blacklightanimalsband.com or on Instagram at blacklightanimalsband. They're also on Facebook and where you stream, plus Bandcamp. And if you wander over to the Bandcamp, you can find their new album, Last Call Love Songs, as well as their debut, Playboys of the Western World. They're both available to stream or via download, and they're both available on vinyl as well. So pick up a copy of each if you're so inclined. They have a gig May 1st here in KC at the RecordBar, and Cole's other band, The Freedom Affair, has a gig the following night, May 2nd, at the Ship. Badass Records podcast episodes air Thursdays, and socials are Twitter and Instagram. Website's badassrecordspodcast.com, and if you need to holler at me, it's badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com. That's all I got going on this week for you. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoy the show. I am in another small patch of rustiness in that I haven't done one of these in a little over a month.
I see that. So we're episode 164.
We will be episode number 164, Badass Records Podcast. Cole Bales, right?
Yeah.
Blacklight
right.
Animals.
You got it.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's see here. So, Blacklight Animals, psychedelic soul from the Midwest. You got a gig coming up Thursday, May 1st at RecordBar.
With Papoose, yeah.
Papoose, awesome. There's a ticket link for that show in the band's Instagram bio, which is at Blacklight Animals Band.
Yep.
Right?
Got it. Uh-huh.
And let's see here. Last Call Love Songs. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Amazon Music, Deezer, etc. Available digitally, but also on vinyl.
Yeah, we got like a limited edition colored white vinyl.
Cool.
It looks really slick.
Very cool. Hasn't even been out a month.
No, not quite.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's
I appreciate
exciting.
it. We're excited.
13 tracks, 42 minutes. Also, Playboys of the Western World from 2021.
Mm-hmm.
12 tracks, 41 minutes. New one on the Record Machine versus Playboys on Groove King Records.
Yeah, that's kind of our imprint label.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why two different? So Groove King for your debut, and then the Record Machine for the new one.
Yeah, so Groove King is kind of just our umbrella that my friends and I, who are all in the band, we have a studio, and we like to produce other artists as well.
Fun.
So we kind of just thought we'd put a name on it and make it a little more official. So it was more or less self-released, the first record. And this one, we'd been friends with Nathan for a while, who runs the Record Machine around here, Nathan Rausch.
Okay.
And, we decided it was
Sounds
time
familiar.
to just yeah he's all over the place, and he's a super super nice guy, and he'd helped us out a lot, but yeah, no, we just decided it was time to make it official and try and release something with him, and just try the record label thing for this one.
Cool. So what was your pressing size?
So we did a smaller pressing size on this one of just 250. So
Okay.
a very limited run.
Yeah.
But it's nice because I still got some Playboys copies down in the basement
Cool.
that I gotta move through. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping to move through all of these.
Yeah. So blacklightanimalsband.com, soul, fuzzed out guitars, hip hop beats, and old Italian movie scenes.
Yeah, Italian movie scores. We could like
Scores, sorry.
No, you're good. Ennio Morricone and all those guys, Bruno Nicolai.
Okay.
Especially the first record. We got really into like the movies of like Dario Argento, Mario Bava, and all that kind of stuff, and we're really inspired by the scores of those movies and
Cool.
just the overall aesthetic. We were thinking about a lot
Cool. My handwriting is hard to read, so I fudge my notes often.
You're okay.
And also, I can't see up close with my glasses on, so double.
You are totally fine.
So anyway, Cole Bales, vocals, guitar, keys, bass, drums, sampling, percussion. Cody Calhoun, lead guitar and percussion. Brandon Moser, bass, guitar, keys, drums, percussion. Nate Hubert, keys and vocals. Alex Hartman, drums and percussion. Now, there's a few other folks credited, however, but keeping it basic, photo on the website, blacklightanimals.band.com, shows 4 folks, but then there's 5 kind of primary folks credited.
Yeah, I know it's kind of confusing. So, Cody and I, the guitar player, we've been buddies since high school, and we've been in various incarnations of this band together forever now. Then we met up with Moser, Brandon Moser, it's been almost 10 years back.
Wow.
Now. Time flies.
Yeah.
And we put out a Facebook ad looking for a bass player, because ours had just left, and we kind of listed our influences on there, which were, kind of niche a little bit. It was, like the Arcs, the Black Keys, and, like 70s funk and rock and all that. And he happened to just love all of this stuff. We were so simpatico with our influences. But when he got back to Cody over the Facebook ad or whatever, and we saw his picture, and we were like, this guy's too handsome. He's going to make us look bad. Like, he's the best looking dude. And he's just like the most talented dude you'll ever meet.
Nice.
And also a nice guy. But yeah, so, we've made a bunch of records together since outside of this. And then for this record, we decided that I kind of played most of the keys live on the last record. And we decided I kind of wanted to get up from behind the keyboard for this record. And so we invited Nate and to play keys and do background vocals with us. He's got a beautiful voice. He's very talented. So he's a new addition for this record, as is Alex Hartman, new drummer for this record. And now we're playing with a different drummer.
Funny.
Liam, who used to be a Not a Planet, or still is Not a Planet.
Okay.
So yeah, that's hence the confusion with the pictures.
Nice. And then one of the single track credits I saw was Jazz.
Yeah, do you know Jazz?
No, but I think that we have messaged. I think that I've tried to get her to come via an Instagram DM, but it felt like the minute that I became aware of her and sent her that message, then I was seeing her at like she blew up.
She is everywhere. She's so hardworking.
Okay.
So the way we met her, I heard her record that she self-produced at the close of a decade. It's a great record. We loved it, and I kind of felt like we might be kind of simpatico in the way we work. So we hit her up in her DMs and invited her to just come over and jam.
Nice.
At that point, we didn't have the studio, so it was just the spare room in my house.
The studio is a new thing for you guys.
Well, we've had it for the last 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but at that point, we were just jamming in the spare room of my house, and we invited her over, and I'm sure she was like, "What are these guys doing?" We immediately hit it off, and we started a band together called Jazz and the Boys, which is separate from Jazz.
So you're one of the boys?
I am one of the boys.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
So I play drums in the Boys, and then Brandon Moser plays bass, Cody plays guitar, and then there's Clarence Coperidge on keys, who also plays with Jazz. It's all...
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we did a few songs together. We still got more in the can that
nice
gonna come out. But yeah, so we thought it was only natural because we had been working with her so much, and I was so inspired by her and her work ethic to just have her on this record doing some spoken word interludes.
Very nice.
Which she did on the spot, by the way. She's so good at just not overthinking and just doing it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What are you born and raised here in the area?
More or less, yeah. I've been kind of in the Kansas City area my whole life.
Okay.
Cody and I met in high school, and we went to high school out in Holden, Missouri. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's kind of in the sticks there.
It's it's right by Lone Jack, and
you got it, yeah.
I tried for the longest time. Let's see here. Is it 150 that runs out east?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's
131 too, and
there's
50.
There's a highway that crosses I think 150 once you get out a good ways. And technically, In Holden, but there's a Mexican restaurant right there on the corner.
I think I know what you're talking about.
And the name is escaping me, but then there's also another one south, like a good hour-ish drive south that is affiliated, perhaps. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I know Holden.
Yeah, so we went, we met because we were doing my friend Curtis at the time wrote me into playing for this talent show. And he said, yeah, I know this other guy that you're going to love. His name is Cody. He loves Led Zeppelin. And I had seen him around the hallways. He always wore basketball shorts and then a Led Zeppelin t-shirt.
Nice.
That was how I knew him.
Heck yeah.
And so we all joined this band together. And Cody and I hit it off pretty quick musically, just because we both loved a lot of the same bands that like I couldn't really talk to anybody else about, a lot of these classic rock type bands. But none of us wanted to play bass. So Curtis got to choose what he got to play because he kind of put the band together. So he wanted to play guitar. I only knew how to play guitar. Cody only knew how to play guitar. None of us wanted to switch to bass. So we had a band with a drummer, 3 guitar players, and a singer. And we did While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Nice.
And yeah, I don't know. If anything, it kind of bonded Cody and I, obviously. And after that, we, we're kind of inseparable. But yeah.
Right on. Do you have siblings?
I have one half brother.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And any idea how mom and dad met?
I don't know the specific story of how my mom and dad met. That's a good question. I should ask them.
High school sweethearts or set up by friends or something?
It may have been a set up by friends scenario. I know I think they met in their early 20s and were divorced by their mid 20s.
Sure,
it didn't last too long.
Yeah.
I was probably 2 years old when they got divorced.
Okay. Yeah. So whatever roof or roofs you are raised beneath, is there music being played in the home to listen to?
Yeah, very much
and
so.
And what sorts of things are folks into?
So my mom was kind of into, I think, like a lot more pop and stuff like that. So I heard a lot more of that on the radio there. But my dad is a drummer, and he's also in a band, and he took an active, I think, like interest in my musical taste. He would burn me like CDs and stuff like that all the time to listen to on the bus when I still had my CD.
Discman?
Yeah, my Discman, exactly. So he would, burn some of the songs that I was listening to at the time, like Eminem and stuff that he didn't, really care about. But he would also put in like Eagles songs, Leonard Skinner, all that kind of stuff. So, and when we were riding around in the car together, it's the same thing. He would have all these. I mean, he's got a pretty eclectic taste, but a lot of it was where I was introduced to like the older rock stuff, which was kind of my bread and butter early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, we talked about this a little bit while ago because you're wearing the Lebowski shirt, but the Eagles were my favorite band for a long, long time. We saw them back when it was the original lineup. Well, more or less original lineup. They didn't have the guitar player.
Joe Walsh?
No, Joe Walsh was with them. The other one wasn't there, I don't think. The original, like pre-Hotel California or whatever. I can't remember his name.
Not Glenn Fry.
No, Glenn Fry was still there. Okay. But yeah, more or less since Hotel California, that lineup. And it was amazing to me. And I think I liked them the most maybe because ultimately I think what they were writing was really concise pop songs, great melodies, harmonies, the production, everything was just so tight, which I've kind of always gravitated towards, I think.
I went through this weird pocket in my own, so it's like, my folks split when I was pretty young too, and it's like my dad had a bunch of 8 tracks in his van, a lot of John Denver and Oak Ridge Boys, and some kid stuff too. My mom, AM radio, so just oldies all the time until somewhere in mid-grade school. I'm like I'm bouncing between classic rock on the Fox and KY 102, and then eventually 98.9, the rock, whatever it was called. And that was kind of my foundation for beginning my own collection. And so it's like, here's what you hear as a kid, but you're not like maybe you make memories of it, but it doesn't stand out as unique to your family. Like
100%.
And then all of a sudden you pivot and start building your own stuff. So when I would hear stuff that I would really dig, I would go buy it. And a lot of times I would buy greatest hits. And then if I liked it, then now I'm buying actual albums of this artist. And I did that for so long that I got to a point where I was like embarrassed to own greatest hits. Because it's not this group of folks going into a studio with somebody else's money and putting down tracks and choosing artwork and track listing and song sequences and all of this stuff. However, Eagles Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2 are
I know it well.
Freaking, both of them are really, really good.
Yeah.
Like Volume 1 for sure is no skips.
I mean, that was the thing with the CDs. It was the greatest hits. That was what I was going to like the Best Buy or Target and grabbing the greatest hits.
Yeah.
That was the gateway.
So I, to come to a spot later in life where, I'm a Lebowski appreciator, and I do appreciate the scene in the taxi cab. But there is inside, I'm like, Eagles are awesome, dude.
Yeah, the Eagles are kind of awesome.
Like any other classic rock outfit, if you don't overdo it. Like, there's a lot of classic rock songs. If I hear that first note, I'm like, nope.
100%.
Heard that Creedence track too many times, whatever the case may be.
I think that's what makes that scene so funny, is that they are just such an inoffensive band that the fact that he would be so frustrated by that.
Yeah.
I mentioned I had an Eagles story earlier, so I went with my girlfriend and her friend to like a college dance of some sort. It's not usually my scene, but we rode a party bus there. And it was packed, and there was a group of kids that had already been pre-gaming. They're already drunk. They were ready to rock. And they had been playing, like, a bunch of dancey stuff on the bus. And then Best of My Love by the Eagles comes on. The whole bus gets quiet. And I'm watching this guy just sitting there fuming. Like, veins are, like, throbbing on his head. He's shaking. And he finally gets up, and he's like, "Can you turn this fucking shit off?" And he just got so frustrated. And it reminded me of that Lebowski thing. I was like, man, the Eagles must have, like, a real effect on people.
That's Whoa, 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 Sweet Darling, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, Whoa, Sweet Darling.
You got, like, some... So there's maybe a pedal steel.
Yeah, it's like kind of a very schmaltzy ballad, and I can understand it's bringing down this guy's, good time. But
Stop.
Just how angry he got.
What's it, 4.5 minutes?
Right, exactly.
You'll be all right, buddy.
I don't know if I can say swears on here.
Yeah, you're absolutely fine. So in that like idea of starting, so here's what you kind of listen to as a little person, and then you start your own tastes and maybe start building your collection, whether it's LimeWire or buying something from Walmart or whatever. Not necessarily referring to the list that you shared with me. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, by the way. Yeah. Is there an album that stands out as like something that really made you fall for it, or maybe you bought, maybe it was the first one you bought or borrowed and dubbed or burned a CD of?
Yeah,
that comes to mind.
So yeah, prior to it, this does kind of coincide with the list I gave you, but prior to that, it was a lot of my dad burning me what were essentially greatest hits CDs, or maybe not greatest hits, but what he, his favorite songs, his hits. Yeah. And so that was how I consume music. But I think it would have been one Christmas or birthday or something when I got like 3 CDs that kind of made me get into listening to full records. Okay. And it would be the White Album by the Beatles, or self-titled by the Beatles, whatever you prefer. Exile on Main Street by the Stones. And I think I might have gotten Let It Bleed that same year too.
Okay.
And then Wilco's Being There.
Oh, wow.
Which I didn't put on the list, but actually was a pretty formative record for me. I went through a huge Wilco phase. Love Wilco. So those 3 records made me think like, okay, for me, these are no skips records. Yeah. These have really spoken to me. So I started getting into other full LPs.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it. Are you familiar with the author Jerzy Kosinski?
I'm not.
No. Here it is. So unfortunately, one of my dogs or a rodent or something got a hold of it. But this is a really fantastic book.
I like the chew marks make it better.
Yeah.
So I've seen the film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know the story.
I do know the story, yeah. Peter Sellers Best.
I think...
Chauncey Gardner.
I think that Wilco record is maybe named after him.
Yes, I do think so. Okay. I think that's correct. Okay. It's not like a Chauncey Gardner rock opera, but I think it is inspired.
Yeah. Yes. What about live music? Do you have early or first concert memories?
It would have been a lot of my dad.
Okay.
He plays in a cover band. They do like a lot of like 80s and 90s stuff primarily, but some 70s stuff too.
Okay.
So it would have been a lot of that. And then I do remember the Eagles was the first concert that I chose to go to. But before that, like I went to a Toby Keith concert, I think, at whatever they're calling Sandstone now.
It's always Sandstone.
Right,
it's always
exactly.
Sandstone.
And it was Toby Keith, and then he brought out Willie Nelson, which was really cool. Nice. It was like very much in that like the Taliban song era, Toby Keith.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, that was I think maybe my first memory of a concert outside my dad. Yeah.
So does Dad still gig?
Yes, he does all the time. Snafu is the name of his band.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great word and great sort of running piece of motif in Saving Private Ryan.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. It's like a military term, much like Wilco, actually.
Yeah. Does he happen to gig at Aztec Shawnee ever?
I don't think so.
No?
A lot of the stuff is in the Northland, like primarily. Okay. I think.
I just asked because I had Sirens and I had Shane Powers from Sirens and Suburbs to do an episode. We talked Aztec Shawnee. That made me curious. I looked it up, and then I went there and did an episode with Jeffrey Calkins, the owner. And when I was discovering the venue, their calendar is full of tribute and cover bands.
Really?
And other things too.
Yeah.
But like they come from far and near. These I'm sure that the Eagles. You name the artist, there's
a tribute band.
Yeah. So Blacklight Animals now and previous band with one or two of these bandmates. Mm-hmm. Where does your musicianship trajectory begin?
Well, like I said, my dad's a drummer.
Yep.
But the first thing I gravitated towards was guitar.
Okay.
And it may have been like I found an acoustic guitar at a neighbor's and decided I was interested. And then my dad's buddy Brad, he was in Snafu with, taught me. I remember the first thing he taught me was Smoke on the Water, and he taught me like some of the chords like the D's and G's. And But he taught me Smoke on the Water, and my dad and someone else had told me like. I was like, I want an electric guitar. I want to play Smoke on the Water with the distortion. And they're like, well, you got to learn on acoustic first, because if you learn it on acoustic, it's going to seem so much easier on electric.
Right.
So that was what I did. I played acoustic for the longest time. They got me an electric guitar and a little bitty amp, and that was what I was doing in my room all the time.
Awesome.
And though I never learned to read music, I didn't really like tab all that much, so I was, just listening to records and learning all this stuff by ear. Not really focusing on scales. I learned what I needed to learn, and then I said, okay, I want to play Wish You Were Here. I want to play some of these Eagles songs, all that, yeah.
Did you ever learn how to play Fearless? Do you know that tune?
I know that song. I never learned how to play it. I love that song, though.
It's one of I didn't have a lot of discipline to sit in my room, and I would some, but not enough. Mm-hmm. And I could just never find, and then I saw a YouTube video very recently of some, and they're like, the thing about this, and there's all kinds of, it's tuned a different way, which is not a place that I ever got to. Knowledge. It's like, oh, I know I know the basic, and it's beyond that, then it's above my pay grade. But
the only reason I am kind of more familiar with alternate tunings is because my real first guitar hero was Keith Richards.
Okay.
And he played an open G and open E a lot, so I kind of messed around with that because of him. But no, I was just, learning the standards. Wish You Were Here, Over the Hills Far Away.
Cool.
A lot of Zeppelin type stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever listened to Machine Head? The Deep Purple album with Smoke on the Water on?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Is that the same one with we literally cover it, Highway Star and all that? Yeah.
That's what I want to know. If you
Yeah, I think I have heard the whole record, yeah.
That I never got to a spot where I would even consider soloing, but just as an admirer of solos, like that one rips.
Yeah.
Richie Blackmore is the guitar, right?
Yeah.
And
those tones are just, oh man.
Yeah.
Another one, solo wise, that really spoke to me early on was Paranoid. That solo and that fuzzed out.
Yeah.
Just, oh man.
Yeah. Good stuff.
The Sabbath song, yeah.
Well, thanks again for sharing a list with me. I usually just run through them in chronological release order, if that's okay.
Sure.
So that would put us in 1968 with the White Album by the Beatles.
Oh, thank you.
Which is 9 of 12 for them, 30 tracks, 93 minutes. The original Fab Four, coming out of Liverpool. This one has made a list or two. Most notably, in my mind, was my guy Britt Whitehead, going all the way back to episode 7, who said there's only, I mean, this was way back when it was like the folks that I would sit down with, were just talking about one album.
Yeah.
And so that was the only one that he came to talk to me about with. But he said there's really only one real song on this album, and I was like, what are you talking about? And you already mentioned it, While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Interesting.
Which I see like what he meant when he said that. However, all the rest of them are songs also in my mind.
Yeah, it might be a bit hyperbolic, but I do understand what he's getting at. Because, I mean, again, like we talked about earlier, Blackbird exists on this record.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I mean, that is why I would argue maybe Sgt. Pepper's has a place, but this probably is the most influential Beatles album because I think it's the most imperfect Beatles album. And
imperfect in what sense?
Well, George Martin said it too, that if they would have just made this a concise single record song, not a double album, it would have been a perfect record. But because it's a double album, it's a bit shaggier. You get it going into these kind of weird corners like Honey Pie and Revolution Number 9 and stuff that never would have had a place on another Beatles album.
But I know it the only way I've ever known it is the way that it is.
Right.
And to me it is perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't say it's the best album of all time, but for what it is perfect.
100% agreed. I think what I'm saying, though, is it's like it's perfect in its imperfection because it's so weird and not the most concise pop record they've ever done. Yeah. That is why it speaks to people, I think, more than others.
Interesting.
That's my take on it.
This is big time Dad influence.
No
Beatles for Dad.
I don't know why I ended up getting not no Beatles for Dad, but I think because of when my dad grew up, he was much more influenced by a lot of the 80s rock and stuff like that. But no, I don't know why I got this record. It may have been that I'd expressed an interest in the Beatles and a parent got this for me not knowing what exactly this record was. Huh. I don't know, but I'm so glad that I got this one and not another one because, again, I think it's the weirdest Beatles record.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to me in that sort of greatest hits / compilation vein that we were talking about. I had a buddy, he dubbed me 2, and they were both, double album length, and they have 4-year windows that they're covering material from. One of them is like 62 to 66. And the other might be like 67 to 70 or something like that. But that first one, I'm not certain that it starts with Penny Lane, but it might start with Penny Lane, and then track 2 might be Strawberry Fields Forever. And at that time, I'm in 6th grade when he dubs that for me on cassette. I only know oldies Beatles.
Yeah.
So Penny Lane, I hit play and it's like, oh, I know every word, sing this to you in my sleep. And then Strawberry Fields Forever, I was like, well, what's going on here?
It's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I had those 2 compilations, and based on nothing, which I don't know, maybe is in the neighborhood of combined 50, 60 tracks. It's a lot of tracks, and they're all short. But it's like, I don't need to ever go seek out any Beatles because I got it all. Yeah. It's hardwired in. And then years later would I become aware of the value of the White Album, Sgt. Pepper's, Revolver, Abbey Road, etc. And it's like, well, this is what they went in. One of the reasons why I love this is because I love the concept of the album. Even if it, people aren't really making double albums, not like they were in the late 60s and 70s. And then, There's nothing wrong with this, but you can make a record in your basement. You can plug it online and it can live there. But so the riding your bike to the record store or driving, whatever the case may be, and like buying an album that somebody at some point saw this outfit gig and took a chance on them and signed them to a deal and ponied up for them to go in and blah blah blah, and and then they come out and like here's the thing that we made for you people, and you get to decide it's good or it's not good or it's somewhere in between, and so I think I'm almost positive this is the first Beatles album that I owned and like listened to, and just like, whoa, all these years I thought I had the Beatles down pat. I hadn't even like gotten past the table of contents.
Well, and they and maybe like the Beach Boys with Pet Sounds might be largely responsible for people getting into full LPs, because even like prior to this in the early 60s and stuff like that, you had LPs, but I mean, it was all about the single or a couple singles off those LPs,
right? And
everything else was almost kind of like filler.
Yep.
But this, like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and all that, were kind of saying, no, this is a full concept. It should be listened to in full. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's really cool.
And they, I think for this or Sgt. Pepper's, or I'm pretty sure it's one of the two, kind of introduced the world to more tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Recording wise, like 16 track. I don't know what the numbers are, but it was like the world was using 4 tracks or 8 track, and they went 16 and 30, all these. And
so I know by the album that preceded this, which is has Tomorrow Never Knows on it, has I'm Only Sleeping, Revolver.
Yeah,
they were still using 4 track, which if you look at the techniques they were utilizing was absolutely astounding. It's crazy.
Really?
And that I would say is maybe right now my favorite album from them.
Okay.
But so this one, they may have had 8 tracks by this point. I'm not sure, but I know they didn't get 16 track until like Abbey Road, which is
right. But okay. But I mean they and their production team rightfully receive credit for sort of taking that leap, right?
Yeah, I think they were pioneering a lot of that multi-track recording stuff, absolutely. And for me, so around this time I got this, I think I also got a Tascam digital recorder 8-track. And, prior to that, I'd just kind of been playing in my room. I don't think I was in a band yet. I'd maybe jam with Cody, but this album kind of made me want to experiment with overdubbing myself and hearing myself and what I could do with that. I mean, this album might be the reason that I am into recording and engineering and mixing.
Cool. So when you, let's see here, Last Call Love Songs and Playboys of the Western World, are you sort of the primary writer for the essence or the structure of a song, and you bring it to the fellas and you flesh it out together? Or do you say, I have brought a fully finished thing, or are other people writing too?
Yeah, so I mean, it does vary from song to song, but primarily Cody and I write together, especially with the lyrics. And Moser has also started writing with us more as well. But it's usually the 3 of us kind of writing something, and then we bring it to the band and flesh it out from there.
Cool.
But we try to make it, collaborative and democratic. But there are some songs that, just happen to be fully fleshed out demos from one of us that we just said, well, cool. I mean, let's not change a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to choosing what songs are going to be on the album and choosing artwork and having a social media presence and all the recording and all of those hats, are you wearing most of them yourself? Is it a shared situation?
To an extent, it's a shared situation. Yeah, I mean, we all kind of have, I think, our little roles that we play best.
Okay.
For me, unfortunately, I've been taking over social media a lot, although Cody does help out there a bit. But I'm more interested in the recording and sonic side of things. I love to mix the albums. I love to engineer and mess around with running it through tape a bunch of times and all that. Cody's very interested in the lyric side of things. Moser is just a genius at arrangements, you know what I mean? So we all have our specialties, yeah.
The last episode I recorded was with a fellow named Till Willis. He and his band Erratic Cowboy just released Glass Cactus last month.
Great album cover.
And we talked about when you're in that space of mixing, producing, master, whatever the role is, there's a different level of needing to be fresh. Like if you are really into that, you probably have an ear for stuff other folks don't, be they fans of the band, your next door neighbor, or actual band mates. And even with that ear, you have to come to it fresh. So you can come and like log a chunk, and then you got to step away and
Absolutely
sort of clear the queue of all of this and come back in focused. I mean, I got to imagine it's never a short boom, 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 easy process, right? It's got to take hours for you to get it to where, like, I really like this start to front.
Sometimes it does. I mean, and this has been a learning process for us too.
I bet.
On the first record, I think that both these records were written in the studio. We didn't think about how to play them as a 4 or 5 piece band. We decided we'd figure that out after, which presents its own challenges. But
Sure.
but we wanted to do what our favorite bands did and write them in the studio and not have limitations. And on the first record, I think we were all learning about the process of engineering and recording itself. And, there were a lot of fights and squabbles, and it was a lot of like, well, no, put this here. No, that's too many overdubs. Well, no, we need this part here. And at that point, I wasn't fully engineering it. Our old drummer, Zach, had engineered it, which, I mean, he taught me a lot about recording. But it was a lot of me trying to get him to do something, to give it a certain sound, and I didn't know how to verbalize it because I wasn't the one, and it was frustrating. Yeah. So on this one, it was actually nice for me to learn some of the tools of the trade and be able to just do it. Cool. That sound in my head and just do it.
Nice.
But now we try not to take too much time on things. I've learned that about myself, that if I give myself too much time to overthink anything, lyrics, sonics, whatever, I'm going to overthink it. Yeah. I'm going to hate it.
Yeah.
So I found that I need to give myself a cutoff, get it done, get it out there.
My friend Josh Dubois from episode 32, he does video. He's a videographer. He edits commercials. He lives in that land, and he said when he was on, sometimes finished is better than perfect.
Yes.
And I was like, amen. I know that feeling.
100%.
So I have over the course of time doing this, learned a little bit about mixing, a little bit about mastering. I don't know if I was asked to distill the responsibility of the engineer. I don't know that I could answer that question.
I think that varies. We have had the same conversation about what a producer is exactly.
Right.
And I think that, again, because we were talking about George Martin and what he did for the Beatles, I think he is maybe more hands-on than a traditional producer would be sometimes, or less hands-on. I don't know. I think it varies from project to project. I mean, certainly on this one, like calling myself the only engineer wouldn't be fair, because if you're just talking about the process of setting up mics or, whatever like that, I mean, we all kind of had a role in that.
Okay. Interesting.
But the mixing primarily is definitely my interest. And that for me goes beyond just like making sure levels are right and adding plugins.
I'm sure.
This last album specifically, last called Love Songs, a lot of it by design I wanted to kind of write in the mixing. So like we have a take that we did. We try and record everything live to tape as a band as much as we could. And
cool.
Sometimes that meant just drums and
bass.
Don't fuck up. Don't fuck up. Or do and just appreciate that.
Yeah.
Fair. But sometimes that meant drums and bass. Sometimes that meant all 4 or 5 of us in a room at the time. And what I wanted to do, because I was inspired by like a lot of hip hop and stuff like that, like specifically early like Tribe Called Quest, where he was making those pause tapes where you take 10 seconds of a record and just loop it. That's what I wanted to do with us. So I would take the initial performance, put it through cassette tape a bunch of times, give it that kind of scuzz, and then I would loop it on a lot of these songs. So that's cool. The process is a little different from the first record. Yeah.
What do you when you're looking, like for me, I edit these in DaVinci Resolve, and so I can open the media pool and drag camera, audio, and then all the little silly things.
Yeah.
And then I pull them all into, and they have like their own. Is that a stem? Are they stems?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's probably more than one, but one primary dude that I've come across on TikTok. He's probably on Instagram too, but he breaks it down for like old De La and Tribe Called Quest songs, and it's like what's that one called? I've seen him do one where it's like each stem is a looping sample from a different artist's song, and one of those 5 has God, maybe is it me myself? Anyway, it's got the whistling from Dock of the Bay, Otis Redding.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see that done. And I can see it and make sense of it. What I can't make sense of is how he did that and how they did that in the first place. Like, how much time did you...
Painstaking.
I need seconds 36 through a minute 19 from track 4.
Yeah.
And that's the teeniest centimeter of the whole project.
So with Q-Tip, like, the way he would do it was he had a record player that was set up to receiver, and that receiver was set up to a 4-track cassette player. He would find the loop that he wanted, he would record it, and then he would fast forward to the end of that loop, record the loop again, and he would just like build that loop over and over again by just recording it over and over, because he didn't have a software to loop it. He couldn't put it on a grid, which is what makes that stuff so cool.
How do you have a social life? You got to be doing that like morning, noon, and night.
Yeah. Let me tell you, the little bit I do, I don't think you have time for a social life.
Right.
But so that's, this goes back to the Beatles too, is like, I really dislike the idea of everything being parted out and having all of the tools at your disposal. Like with digital, right? You can do an unlimited amount of tracks. You have all these plugins. You can do anything you want, which is cool in a way, but I think it also inhibits creativity.
Of course.
So what I like to do is as quickly as possible, even if we have a few mics on the drums, which I think the most we usually have is 4 max, but that's a rare case. I like to bounce them down 1 track on 4-track cassette, and that's the drum track, because that's what Q-Tip would have had.
Right.
And that's what the Beatles had. I mean, sometimes you have like drums, bass, and guitar on 1 track.
QTD.
Yeah. So that was kind of the MO for this record, is to give myself as few options as possible, because that's what they would have had.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it. The other piece to that, back in those early days of building my collection, hearing, and this is, cassette on just a portable dual cassette. I sometimes would throw on headphones. I didn't have anything nice by any means, but for the longest time, it was hard for me to hear the bass. I feel like production, etc., has come a very long way since the 80s, and maybe that's true, and maybe also basses get higher up in the mix than they used to, generally speaking. Okay.
Yeah, and there's lower kick drums, and everything's more clear.
Yeah, and then the other piece to that is having difficulty, like, I see 4 dudes credited. Only 1 dude is playing guitar, but I hear 2 different guitar things, and then years later being like, oh, they're just recording that and then recording the other and playing them at the same time.
Yeah.
Which in my mind goes, cool. That's a really cool sound, but you can't do that on the road.
No.
Unless you're gonna bring another dude and pay him,
And that's been an issue, and then that's part of the reason why we hired Nate too, is like to fill out that sound. But we had to early on understand that they're not going to sound like they are on the records, because there's so much manipulation being done. Right. But we're okay with that, I think, being kind of a different experience live than it is on the record. Yeah. Like, they're captured there as they are, But yeah, I mean, you talk about the sonics and fidelity increasing, and it's more low end all the time now, and they're miking hi-hats, and that has its place. Don't listen to me, because I'm not like an audiophile, but my personal tastes lie in the stuff that is imperfect.
So you say miking a hi-hat, but a minute ago you say 4 mics max on the drums. I'm picturing does the kick get one?
Kick usually gets a mic, sometimes
Snare?
not. And yeah, so if we were doing my max mic setup, we'd do an overhead, we'd do stop snare, bottom snare, kick, but that's so rare. A lot of times we'll do overhead kick, maybe a top snare or a bottom snare mic, gotta choose. Or my favorite is one mic, and you've kind of got it below the snare, a couple feet away, pointed at the bottom of the snare and the kick drum. Turn up the bass a little bit, you get that kick in there. But
never a hi-hat.
No, never hi-hat. I think, what is it, Steve Albini, the Nirvana producer and Pixies and all that, he has a whole video about how the hi-hat is the most god-awful sound known to man.
Aww.
And you shouldn't be miking it. If anything, his whole life is just trying to figure out how to take those frequencies out. So I took that to heart.
Don't hate on the hi-hat, Steve. Come on. Well, great place to start, and just a 2-year leap ahead with some Beatles-esque material in George Harrison's All Things Must Pass.
Yes.
3 of 12, 23 tracks, 116 minutes, staying in Liverpool, a ton of music and a ton of artists are inside this one. Very fascinating pick. How did it land in your lap and become special enough to earn a spot?
I think Cody would have introduced me to this record.
Okay.
I mean, we were both into the Beatles, but I had never heard this. I'd heard What Is Life and some of the more popular stuff, but he definitely let me borrow the weird 3 CD pack that for some reason has a section of jams in the middle.
Oh, okay.
It's a the way the album's laid out is really weird, but it was unlike anything I'd ever heard before.
Some of the more popular stuff, for my money, what's track 2?
My Sweet Lord, obviously.
That's I think for years I thought that was the Beatles.
Yeah.
Just on FM radio.
Yeah.
But what is there another track or two that come to mind that match that tune? It
would have been that one, and What Is Life is probably all I'd have heard. And What Is Life maybe only because it was in a Scorsese movie or something.
Gotcha.
But so I know I'd never heard most of this record, and I'll tell you that it was either this or an album that I think came out the same year or within a year, the band's self-titled record.
Oh, okay.
And they hit me at the same time.
Really?
And I think I like them both because they're such an amalgamation of genres, which, I mean, so is the White Album, but you've got country and gospel and blues and all these things, but it's also something completely its own.
Yeah.
And again, like the Sonics, it's scuzzy, man. It's not clear.
But there is also a kind of clarity to the overall flavor of the album that makes it. It's beautiful without that, but it adds to it for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I still have this on cassette, and I got it because I remember some hype around a re-release or and it was there was a big pressing, and all of a sudden it was out everywhere you turn in the record store. Here's some CDs, here's some cassettes. And so I got one, and I remember getting home and taking it out to listen to and being like, 1970, what? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that folks were doing that at the time.
Yeah. And
also sort of being like, it's George, it's not Paul or John, but and then it's like, oh shit, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is older than me. And I didn't.
And so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And also something that I don't think has really been recreated since.
Not that I don't.
Yeah, it's very much its own thing. And funny enough, I think George hated this record.
Did he really?
That's what I've heard. Yeah, specifically Phil Spector's production, he really did not like.
Oh, what a shame.
I know. Yeah, that's good. He's never made anything that good since. All love to George, but
right.
He's never topped that. But yeah, I don't know. This record, there's not a whole lot to say about it that I haven't already said about the White Album, but the whole point of these records is just expanding the possibilities of what you can do with recording and how recordings can sound.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's a great record.
It's pretty seldom that a band record makes somebody's list, but it has happened. Big Pink.
I love Big Pink.
And then Last Waltz, and you said they're self-titled.
Yeah, the Brown Album, I guess is what they call it.
It's
kind of the one that really hit me.
Okay.
And again, it's the sonics of that record where it just feels like it's the guys in a room in a cabin, which it kind of was. And the fact that they didn't really care what genre of music they were making.
Sure.
I mean, I guess you could call them kind of a precursor to country rock or southern rock or whatever you want to say, but I mean, there's so much more in there.
Yes.
And then the multiple voices and the harmonies and all of that it really spoke to me.
What are you a Dylan guy at all?
I am. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Do you have an opinion on I think it's a 3-record run where they're his band?
Yeah, I love them.
Okay.
Well, I mean, specifically, I think Planet Waves is the recorded record where they were his band.
Okay.
But Before the Flood is this live album that they did shortly after that, where it's them playing some of the stuff from that record, but also some of the older stuff that they used to play with him when he first went electric, which like they were there for all of that, like Judas and people like charging the stage and stuff like that. And it's insane. But no, that record was definitely the one for me.
So in that same sense, are you familiar with everything that the band put out?
Oh, yeah.
And thumbs up across the board, or?
There was definitely diminishing returns after, and I think they would agree with this too, Stage Fright.
Okay.
I think that run from Big Pink to Stage Fright is perfect. After that, you've definitely got some great songs, but like Northern Lights, Southern Cross, and the other one I can't even remember the name of, were not near as good.
Okay.
Yeah, in my opinion.
Right.
But then the Last Waltz I had seen before I even knew who they were, and I rented it because I knew all the guest artists.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Nice.
And so I'd heard some of those songs long before that.
Cool. Well, we'll do another 2-year leap, staying on the other side of the pond with the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street, 1972, 14 of 28, 18 tracks, 67 minutes. This one has made a few lists. In that same sense, have you at some point consumed everything Stones?
I can't say everything,
but close.
They've got such a career, but especially their golden era.
Okay.
Which I consider like Beggar's Banquet to. I'll even throw Goat's Head Soup in there.
Okay.
That was kind of. I know I said Zeppelin and everything brought Cody and I together, but this is what made us say we need to start a band. This album specifically.
No kidding.
But I think we heard like Let It Bleed and Beggar's Banquet around the same time. We actually crashed a car to Let It Bleed.
Oh my.
And that CD was still stuck in that car.
That was the end of that car?
That was the end of that car and that CD, yes.
Wow.
But no, this was the album that made us think we could start a band. And again, I think it's because as compared to like Sticky Fingers, it has a little bit more of this kind of in the garage feel to it, where it's not as perfect. They're not recording at Olympic Studios.
Right.
So we would learn these songs. Oh, and also the thing about like Mick Jagger is not, he gets a lot of shit, I think. I think he is a good singer, but
Sure.
he's not like, much like Dylan, he's not like one of those unattainable voices.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I was first, because we went through a lot of iterations of our bands where other people were fronting the band, and I was interested in singing, but I just thought, well, I'm just not a singer.
Okay.
But Mick Jagger was one of the first people that made me think, oh, I could do that. And so he was one of my first kind of like singing idols.
Nice.
So we would learn these songs. We had an old harmonica bullet mic that we like threw over the rafters in my basement, right? Because we didn't have any mic stands. And Cody and I would both have our guitars, and we'd be standing facing each other, and we'd sing into that bullet mic, and we'd learn all these Exile songs and sing.
So you say the two of you sort of together. This record made the two of you say we need to start a band. Are you listening to it together? Are you listening to it separately and then reporting back and comparing notes?
Yes and yes.
Both?
I mean, I know like Cody was listening to their live album Get Your Yayas Out, and he could at one point like play the solos note for note and all that. Like he was very into it. But no, this one, yeah, I mean, when we were riding around the car together, this was what was on.
Okay.
These are the songs we were learning together, and this is why we wrote the first originals that we ever wrote.
Cool.
And they were very much, I think, influenced by this and
Nice.
old blues. And then the other thing about this, as compared to like the Beatles, because they seemed like so much their own thing, the Stones, I think they wore their influences on their sleeve a lot more.
Okay.
So this is
the Beatles is a little more mysterious, perhaps.
I felt like that, at least for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are like clear influences, but for me, it was just like, oh, it's the Beatles. The Beatles are just the Beatles.
Yeah.
But the
They
Stones,
were just born like this.
They were just born like this. But the Stones, it was like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, they're openly talking about like this is a cover of a Blind Willie McTell song, or whatever, a John Lee Hooker song, and so that was the first record that made us go back and start digging deeper beyond these rock bands. So that's really got us into the blues, and country music and all that.
So, desert island scenario, right? You're not limited in the music that you're bringing with you, except for in one way, and that is you get to bring as many Stones records as you want, or as many Zeppelin records as you want, but you can't bring any of both.
Okay.
Where are you landing on that?
Cody would have a harder time with this one. For me, it's the Stones.
Okay.
I love Zeppelin, but the Stones, again, because of that almost attainability.
Yeah.
Keith Richards was not a guitar god. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Mick Jagger was not like, I don't know, one of those like Sebastian Bach type singers where it's just like, oh man, how's he do this? So they had
Woke up to the sound.
Yeah, right. So like this record for sure.
Nice. You ever poke around at any Tom Waits?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Specifically Rain Dogs, which I
Okay.
think Keith is on a couple songs.
Yeah. He's on at least one other record too.
Yeah. I think they were really good friends.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, like, this is as deep as this goes, but I mean, I've got a few series going within this program, and one of them is I'll sit down with somebody and do a whole discography, and I did a Tom Waits one.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm like, 17 records is a lot to take in, but I also need to learn a little bit about that album, and maybe it involves what went into the recording process, but there's a lot of just little one-line anecdotes of Keith being around, and like
Keith being Keith.
You can feel camaraderie, and you can feel like, forget about the party boy, infinite numbers of Keith Richards will be around long past mankind, regardless of how much damage he's done to it. Blah blah blah.
He's earned that reputation to an extent.
But these tiny little anecdotes, it really just made the human side, and I'm good, thank you. Kind of good people, human side.
Yeah.
Blossom and really make me see him for it was just really cool. And then you talk about Tom not liking where things were going in terms of the incorporation of technology and synthesized stuff, and I'd rather take a shaved 2x4 and hit the underside of a sink than
I'm sure he's done.
1,000%. And sort of Keith being in the mix of some of these little stories, and like there's one where he's like, I want you to, he's trying to get him to like do a certain thing, and he's not understanding, and finally he goes, man, I just want you to like get up and move around a little bit. And he's like, why didn't you fucking say that in the first place?
Yeah, I'm sure Tom Waits had his own very specific way of communicating.
Yeah, exactly.
But I get that vibe about Keith too, especially with his and Mick's relationship, that Mick very much wanted to push forward and stay kind of more current with his interests, and Keith was just like, I want to play the blues.
Yeah.
And
remember that dude I was when you met me?
Right.
Still
I'm still like, I think he still is.
Yeah.
And that's what's endearing about Keith, and I've grown to appreciate Mick a lot, and the way he was staying on the cutting edge of things.
Sure.
Back when I first got into this, I was reading Keith's book, Life, which, have you read that? Amazing read.
Okay.
So many good anecdotes, but also just like to see his like very authentic thoughts on the music that made him is really cool. But back then you read it and you go, Mick, like, come on, like you're this primping, self-obsessed front man. He's trying to keep it authentic, man.
Right.
But then as you get older, you say, well, Mick did have to deal with Keith showing up hours late or not at all, being completely zonked out on heroin.
Yeah.
Like, I have some sympathy for Mick.
He's physically here.
Right,
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This record made us dig into roots music, and those are kind of my favorite records that lead me to the discovery of so much other music. You know what I mean? As opposed to just being a constant repeat record.
Yeah.
And Keith was such an attainable guitar hero because I never got into, like, kind of like you were saying, lead guitar. I wasn't interested in being a virtuoso.
Sure.
Especially after I got that multi-track, I was like, I'm interested in being proficient enough at more instruments so I can do these multi-tracks myself more than being a virtuoso.
It's like, before I did what I do now, I was in the restaurant industry for many years and largely in the back, and eventually I'm managing kitchens and chefing, and the concept of a flavor profile, like the easiest one is a pasta dish. If you're going to have a protein in a pasta dish, cook your protein from raw in that skillet. And, if you get a little crispy and you need to do a gentle wipe, fine. But when you move to the next step, you're not cleaning that skillet.
I mean, keep those crisps in there.
And you're seasoning with you add cream, season. You're adding the pasta, cream. So you're, in my mind, developing that flavor profile by saying, this is what I'm interested in. I don't need to Eddie Van Halen.
No, it's not about one flavor overpowering the dish.
Right.
It's about the overall.
Yeah.
That's my whole kind of concept.
Cool.
So that's why, I was never into the flashy guitar players.
Right.
Like, and Keith was that. He was laying down the bedrock.
He's got chops, though.
He's got chops.
Yeah.
He is. I think he, again, like Mick, he gets less credit than his due.
For sure.
But no, I mean, he did. He played like he didn't care. He played uniquely like Keith. I mean, if you see him out there, he's just kind of banging away at that thing. But he somehow had such a groove.
Yeah.
And even Charlie Watts, I think, said that Keith sets the rhythm for the Stones.
Cool.
And you can hear it.
Yeah. So my big kind of lifelong wheelhouse is Fish. And they've done over their 41 years, every once in a while they'll do a Halloween show. Okay. So in 94 in Glen Falls Civic Center in New York, they covered the White Album. I think that was the first. And part of their lore, their drummer's lore. And by the way, John Fishman is phenomenal. And often folks say the best accompanist, that you'll ever hear. And he's hi-hatting I don't know where his mics are, but it works for what they're doing.
Yeah.
But sort of a gag piece. I mean, they've done like barbershop quartet a cappella numbers on stage over the years, and he'll come up and play a vacuum solo to where he turns on an old school Electrolux and makes like noises into the as part of when they got to Revolution number 9,
I was going to ask if they did Revolution number 9.
He stripped naked all the way, and there's like a bubble machine that's maybe coming out of the vacuum cleaner. I don't know, but it's why. And at the time he was wearing like, those goggle glasses, so just a sight to see.
Amazing.
I did see them do one Halloween show. So most shows are 2 sets with a little intermission in between. But when they do that, the middle set, they'll do 3 sets, and the middle set is the whole album. So in 2008 at in Indio, California, where Coachella is, I saw them do Festival 8, and they did Exile.
Exile, cool, yeah.
With like Sharon Jones in the DAP and a horn section, and they ended up making a movie out of the whole thing.
That's so cool.
You can find it, and it's real good.
That's like really. So the Dap King's horns were playing all the horn.
I'm not positive but it's Sharon Jones and then another gal doing backing vocals, and then there's
so cool.
2 or 3 horn players. I don't know if they were Dap Kings, but they're real tight.
That's a whole nother wormhole we could go down.
And they, as the thing is ending, I think you get a little bit of footage of them rehearsing.
Oh, cool.
And they're just kind of in a small space, and no, on this part it's dun 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 dun, and then they're like oh, and then you see it, but they have, for the longest time, going back to way before that particular show, covered Loving Cup, and in recent years have incorporated Shine a Light.
Yeah.
And oh my God, when they cover it, it's beautiful.
That's so cool.
It's
You
really
said this documentary, is it on YouTube, you said?
I'm not sure where it is.
I'll have to check that out.
But I mean, it's from 2008. It's them doing Exile in its entirety. It might just be the whole show, like all 3 sets.
Yeah.
But if Festival 8, if you search Festival 8, because I went and saw it in a theater, like whenever they put it out. But don't think I've ever seen them or heard them cover anything by George, but definitely have. I mean, they do an incredible version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Oh,
I mean, or A Day in the Life. I mean, they do a lot of Beatles covers.
That's awesome.
Super fun.
Have you ever seen Amazing Grace, that documentary they did on the Aretha Franklin album?
No.
It's amazing.
Okay.
It'll bring you to tears. But in that documentary, it's, I think, 71. It maybe came out in 72. I could be wrong about that. But the Stones were doing overdubs in L.A., vocal overdubs. Because, they recorded this album in France in a basement, basically, of a mansion, this cold basement, which, again, was part of the appeal, right? Because that's where Cody and I were. But they went to do overdubs in L.A., and Mick and Charlie are there in the audience. And Aretha's recording in this church, and she's doing this gospel album live with a live audience, and it's incredible. And they're in the background just, in awe, right? And you can hear some of that influence come in on, like, especially like Let It Loose and Shine a Light.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Have you seen the clip of Chicago? It's real grainy, but it's been making the rounds kind of recently. In studio, and Al Green is like across the hall also recording. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't seen this.
So Chicago is 7-8 piece, right? And they're doing I'm so tired of being.
Yeah.
And he comes out and hears it and comes in, and they're all like, oh, and he's like, I mean, since we're all here together, do you mind? And one,
cool.
2, and it pans from like drum to guitar. Like every dude is like freaking out. Like, we're jamming with Al Green.
I bet
it's really cool.
We and the other band I'm in, the Freedom Affair, we actually had the opportunity to record.
The Freedom Affair.
Yeah, I play guitar for them
with Matt Brick.
With Dave Brick?
Dave Brick,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And,
okay.
Yeah, and that leads into a whole other thing. Chris Hazelton, who plays keys for that band, and we write a lot of songs together, he kind of taught me everything I know, in terms of engineering. He tried to teach me the right way, and he's done his best to do that, but I don't do things the right way.
Okay.
But yeah, so we had the opportunity, this last album we put out, to go down to Memphis and record with Boo Mitchell, who's Willie Mitchell's son, who Willie Mitchell recorded all his Al Green albums, and we recorded at Royal, where Al Green cut those records.
Wow.
That was one of those experiences for me, yeah.
So I had John Brick on for an episode, and then I asked Dave after a gig at the Ship. Freedom Affair was playing the main room, and the other room was a couple. God, Ian Hollowell, the Cheeto Flow, he's on sax, and like his roommate raps or scratches, and then there was also a DJ, FK Menace.
Okay.
So the dinner, the supper club or the dinner club, something like that's who was in the small room.
And they usually have a DJ over there.
Yeah, and Freedom Affair was playing in the main room, and Dave, I wound up chatting with him just real quick afterwards, and I was like, 2 of those dudes have done an episode. Your brother's done an episode too. And he's like, all right, but you know, whatever. But so if you see him, tell him.
I'll let him know.
I'm still waiting on his list.
They're big record heads. It'd be hard for them to narrow it down to 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So and Moser, the bass player for Black Light Animals, is also a bass player in that band as well too. So yeah. So
you guys just had a release or a big gig or something?
Yeah, well, so our second record isn't out yet, but we have a release show May 2nd, and then the album comes out May 9th, I think.
The night after your RecordBar gig?
Yeah. It's going to be a busy weekend.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
That's fun. So, we're going to come stateside real quick. Akron, Ohio, 2010.
Yeah.
Black Keys Brothers, 6 of 12, with one last year and one slated for this year. These guys, 15 tracks, 55 minutes for this one. Interesting career, this duo. Something of an admirable following for a lot of years, but this one always seems to get a lot of the love. Why is that?
Well, I mean, I think it delivered them their first radio hit with Tighten Up. I think that's the main reason.
Okay.
And it's interesting you say a lot of love, because I agree, this is when I got into them. But a lot of hardcore Black Keys fans that likes them from the early two-piece garage rock days, this is when they start, I think, hating on the Black Keys. Yeah, because they're expanding the sound. It's not two guys in the garage anymore.
Right.
They want them to... What you said, they've put out 12 records? Yeah, if they had their way, they'd just be doing the same thing for 12 records.
Right.
Why
you got to evolve, man.
You got to evolve. I don't think there's any reason to make a record if you're not doing something that challenges yourself or feels like you have something new to say.
Yeah.
But this record was another cornerstone for Cody and I.
Okay.
First off, it's, in my opinion, a perfect record.
Okay.
It came along right as I was getting into engineering and mixing myself.
Really?
And so a lot of the sonics of this record have informed a lot of what I do.
Okay.
And I talked about, like, not putting more than 4 mics on the drums.
Yeah.
Like, that comes from this ethos on this record.
Okay.
I think they were down at Muscle Shoals recording this. It had been a museum because it was not a functioning studio anymore.
Oh, wow.
And so it was not really usable in any sense. It didn't have the console or any of the equipment there. It wasn't soundproofed. It wasn't any of these things, right? They're sound treated. So they brought all their own equipment in. They played in this room where all these amazing records were cut. And I guess the low end, something about the low end was just so muddy. That's kind of what gives this record its sound.
Because I'll tell you what, if you put 15-year-old me back in my room and listening to this, like, I'm having a hard time identifying what's what.
Yeah.
If you just are used to, like, songs are 3 minutes and 45 seconds and there's bass, guitar, drums, just as basic and vanilla.
Yeah.
And then you put this, like, I'm not really sure.
Like identifying, like, what is that instrument?
Yeah. How did you make that sound?
Yeah, absolutely. Dan from this band is kind of a studio wizard. And that was part of the appeal for me too. Is like, what is that?
Yeah.
Why does that sound like that?
Yeah.
And they have very much the same ethos, which is like, do it quick, do it dirty, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
But this to me is their crowning achievement, and also is the reason that I got into soul music. I mean, technically, this album is the reason I'm in the Freedom Affair right now.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, if I didn't love this record and want to dig in and listen to what Dan and Pat were listening to, I wouldn't have discovered hip-hop. I wouldn't have discovered the Wu-Tang Clan, which means I wouldn't have discovered RZA's Shaolin Soul compilations, where he plays all of the songs that he sampled over the years.
Okay.
So that's how I'm getting into O.V. Wright and Syl Johnson and all these soul guys, all these deep-cut soul guys. And that's the reason that Chris and I kind of hit it off all these years ago. I was just talking about all these Soul 45s
Very
that we
cool.
loved. So... yeah, have a lot to thank this album for.
Well, if you are so inclined, one of my series is a Wu-Tang series.
Yes.
And I just have a little tin. I did one that covered all the Wu-Tang studio records.
Oh, cool.
And then I'd Inspect the Deck. I might have done Inspect the Deck, and then but it's literally like each Wu-Tang member has a piece of paper in here, and whoever it is draws. That's whose discography we go through next. I've done two or three installments, but if you take all the studio Wu-Tangs and then all the side, it's 80 records.
Oh yeah,
so it's nothing small.
No, and you have to include those records. I think, especially like the first like Jizza and Ghostface records, and they're absolutely part of that.
Yeah.
And I think in some senses, like other than Enter the 36 Chamber, which is a perfect record, Jizza's was it Liquid Swords?
Yeah.
I think is better than any other actual official Wu-Tang record that came after it.
I'm not a 36 Chambers lover.
No.
I like I don't want to say everything that came after it, but there's 2 or 3 that I love like incrementally more.
Yeah.
But
like the W, is that the
There's was there a Wu-Tang Forever?
Wu-Tang Forever, yeah,
Wu-Tang
yeah.
Forever. I'd have to go back and look at my notes. But
that one I think has a Syl Johnson sample on it.
Okay,
Like, could I be falling in love with you, baby?
Yeah. And shoot me for saying this. I know this is sacrilege to a lot of people, but not always. But oftentimes, I find that I do like the polished a little.
Yeah.
Better than the dirty.
Enter the 36 Chamber is very much dirty.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when I first bought a copy of that on cassette many years ago, I was like, oh, well, this must be in line with what I had already listened to, NWA and Eazy-E and Ice Cube and Ice-T. And I was like, this is like grating almost.
Yeah.
Like, where's the Snoop Dogg, like,
that West Coast
G-Funk,
was very polished.
Yeah,
and I mean, I love those records too. The Chronic and Doggy Style are absolute classics. And that's what I like about Brothers is that I think it has a nice mix between the polished high end and the grit, and that's where I'm trying to strike the balance. Because I never liked the lo-fi thing,
right? But man, a lot of folks do.
Yeah, I think there's a balance
to the point where it's like, is it just cool to say that, or do you actually in here like it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like we listen to some of these bands like the Black Lips and stuff like that are garage rock, and they're very much lo-fi. Like, put a mic in a room and just go. Mm-hmm. That's a little much for me. I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, this is the reason that I got into soul music and hip hop, and it has forever changed not only my views on music, but my views on production. And it introduced me to these guys you mentioned, the Dap Kings and Sharon Jones and all that. So there's this band that are kind of like the new, like, Funk Brothers, or the new, whoever you want to say, like Muscle Shoals Rhythm Section or whatever, that have been producing all these pop records over the years. And they started doing in Sharon Jones band, and like Lee Fields and Charles Bradley and all these great modern soul singers. And Leon Michaels he produced a record by Lee Fields called My World, which is a perfect record. Dan heard that record, and that's why he made Brothers. And he hit Leon and Nick Mavchon, who's the bass player, up to tour with them for this record because they needed to expand the band. And that got me into all of their records.
Oh, cool.
Which they actually do. Leon's band, El Michaels Affair, does a kind of like a tribute record to the Wu-Tang called Return to the 37th Chamber, I think is what it's called.
I've used clips from some of those tracks for like intro and outro for episodes.
So that almost made it on this list.
Okay.
Because that's
a great record.
It's so good. And so that production, I think, strikes the balance nicely between the high and the lo-fi.
Yeah.
And yeah, I talked about like running drums to tape and stuff like that. That's all Leon's influence on me. He's my favorite producer working today.
Okay.
But so they've gotten into, like, they were on the Amy Winehouse record. They've done Lady Gaga. Wow. They've done the new Clairo record, which is one of my favorites that came out this year.
What's the name of the single that she put out?
Sexy to Someone. Yeah. So that's all them.
I was like, yeah, who is this girl?
Yeah.
This is dope.
She's amazing. Yeah. And that record's, one of my favorites. And then Lady Ray, I don't know if you're familiar with her. Check out her stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Leon's the man.
Nice. So, gosh, I really can't... the fact that you have an album with Blacklight Animals that's not even a month old and have a gig on the first and then a gig on the second.
Yeah.
It's in celebration of...
That's the Freedom Affair release show. We just did the Blacklight Animals release show last weekend or the weekend before at the Ship. And then the Freedom Affair is going to be at the Madrid on May 2nd.
Fun room.
Yeah,
Fun room.
It'll be fun.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's from my chair, hearing that, it almost seems like it would be a little bit of a challenge to put the lid on the fun or the excitement.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I know there's a ton of work that goes into all of the elements, writing, recording, gigging, engineering, mix, all of the stuff. But that's really cool, man.
We were talking about it, and we decided we've got to stagger the records next time. Like, we can't be recording at the same time and promoting and touring at the same time. We gotta, find an off schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it does. I mean, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of isolating yourself in rooms and writing, which can be a kind of a lonely process. And then a lot of like being in front of a lot of people and excitement and, hopefully good things, and praise. But, and then it's back to the isolation. It's a weird dichotomy.
Do you know Bob Walkenhorst?
I've heard the name. Oh, yeah. And his daughter Una, right?
Yeah. So he was in the Rainmakers for a lot of years.
Yeah.
He still gigs like 2 Wednesdays a month at Mike Kelly's West Sider.
Oh, yeah. I like the West Sider.
He did an episode with me, and he wrote a book, and I was getting ready for his episode. I was, wow, holy shit. He paints, anyway. If I could turn a switch tomorrow, I would be a writer, that has an income that keeps the things going.
That's the dream.
But I was like, dude, tell me all about it. And I was like, would you do it again? He's like, no. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, it's a very lonely journey.
It is.
And I was like, I can see that.
Yeah, and I'd imagine hard to keep yourself at that kind of self-paced. You have to have a certain kind of work ethic and a certain, because at least with bands, like you've got the other people keeping you going and motivating you as a writer. It is completely on you.
Yeah. Well, in the editing piece, like, how can you know when you're editing your own work if it's what you've written and what you're reading is shit or not?
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be a real, a black belt skill level to be able to be like, that's dog shit. Oh, this is good.
Well,
and be right about it.
Because I don't know if all artists are this way, but I've got a real strong sense of self-loathing for most anything I do at a certain point.
Yeah.
You go through, oh, this is awesome. This is a great idea. And then you're fleshing it out and you say, what's this stupid? Why am I even doing this? Yeah. So I really rely on the other members of the band to, have a bullshit meter on the stuff,
Keeps you humble.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
It does. And,
cool.
They don't mince words when you've been around guys that
long. Okay. So our final leap, we're going back across the pond again. 2018.
Sheffield.
Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah.
6th of 7, 11 tracks, 40 minutes. This was the only record on your list that I had not only never listened to before, but I had never heard of. And I enjoyed the shit out of it.
I'm glad. Like, this is another divisive one.
No, I honestly mean no shade to 1 through 4.
Yeah.
Because they are special for their own reasons. And, for me, I know the White Album way more than the other 3 combined, right? But, so a lot of love for the White Album, and then I do like those 3 records, but this was captivating, and I have a lot of nerdy things that I wind up repeating doing all these having all these conversations, but I don't feel like I repeat something that doesn't bear that's not worth repeating. So here's the thing.
Yeah, please.
You're a second listen to a record awards you an opinion.
Yeah.
But it isn't until the 3rd listen that you're allowed to share that opinion.
I like
so
that.
1 listen, you ain't got nothing, right? So,
yeah.
But that's what you give me your 5 listen. So for this, I'm going off 1 listen. It's really rare that out of the gate, for me, on listen number 1, something grabs me and keeps me. And then you sort of, enough time goes by, I'm kind of like taking notes and multitasking, which I know is not the same thing as, zero distractions.
Mm-hmm.
But I get to that point where it's like track 7, and I'm like, oh, it's almost over.
Yeah.
Like
that's great.
That's so seldom in a first listen. Like when you were talking about you and Cody and sort of this bubbling up love for Exile, I love that. So it's one of my favorite things in the music listening element of life as your love for an album begins to grow. And then all of a sudden you're to the point where you know it. And you're, all right, now I got to know what's the run of tracks 7, 8, 9. You need to know the order. And there's a horn on there. Let's figure out who that, and then all of a sudden you're, kind of an expert on that album.
I could never hear that album again. I could just play it in my head.
Right. But that experience of like that mysterious intrigue sort of itch scratch on listen one, and then you go back to second listen and you're like, oh, I remember liking that, and you start discovering stuff that you missed on first listen. Like, I love that build. But again, the rarity of listen one just grabbing you by your cheeks and pulling you in and saying, check this out.
Yeah.
Tell me about this album, this artist. I know nothing.
So have you never heard any of the other Arctic Monkeys records?
I never heard of Arctic Monkeys.
It would be rewarding to go back and listen to all their records, because one of the things I love about the Arctic Monkeys is they've never made the same record in their life.
Okay.
Alex Turner. Well, okay, so they started out in Sheffield, and I may be wrong on the statistic, but it's something like this. Had the fastest selling record in England since the Beatles.
What?
They were just playing pubs around Sheffield, and I guess they were one of the first bands to kind of blow up on MySpace, putting their music online.
Yeah.
But they had this huge cult following after this first record. And it's called Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not.
Yeah, I love that title.
Yeah, it's great. And it comes from a line in this book, Saturday Nights and Sunday Mornings, which is like a classic working class British book. And Alex Turner just had a way of speaking to working class people, writing about things that no one else wrote about. And it's a great record. You should definitely listen to it. But they followed that up. Their second record's a little bit of a mixed bag, and it's kind of the same, but you see them growing. But their third record is called Humbug. It's like a desert stike stoner rock record that Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age produced.
Oh, wow.
And they pissed a lot of people off, which is my favorite thing for a band to do. And yeah, it's a completely different thing. Then they did like Suck It and See, which is like a lot of love songs, kind of indie rock record. Followed up with AM, which that one I'm surprised you hadn't heard, because it made it big in the States.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's like kind of a mix between like an R&B, like 2000s R&B record, and a hard rock Sabbath record.
Interesting.
It's amazing. It's great.
Wow.
And that was a huge hit over here. People wanted them to do another one of those. Huh. And this is what they followed it up with, which is like a Bowie-esque space opera.
I'm glad you said that. The movie Moana.
Oh,
have you seen this
I have
film?
not seen Moana.
Really?
I've heard a lot about Moana.
Okay. So she's got to go on this voyage, and she partners up with this demigod Maui, who's played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And it's really cute. Like there's a lot of singing in it, and there's the best song on the soundtrack. He sings the whole thing, and there's some footage of him cutting the track, in front of a hanging mic, and it's like, that's so sweet. Like,
that is cool.
Because it's this little, but so he's a shapeshifter, and he's got this hook, and if he has this hook, he can turn into anything. But years ago, he's done all of these things in the centuries and before Moana even existed, and in one he was defeated in one of those things, and his hook fell to the bottom of the ocean, and this crab's got it, and so when they on part of this voyage they got to go retrieve his hook, and it's a dangerous thing, and they get down there, and the crab is like this savage, like, I mean, funny and like comical, but also like he's no slouch in terms of challenges. And he sings, the crab sings a song, and it's called Shiny, and it's super annoying. But there's a very big familiarity in the vocals of that song, and some of the sound vocally coming
interesting
out. Yeah. Like in one track it was like, oh my god, and then I couldn't not hear it a little bit.
Yeah.
Which didn't mean that it took away from how much I was enjoying it. It was just whimsical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you said.
If you hear their first record, you will not hear any indications of this record at all.
Wow.
He kind of, he was a lot younger, but he's kind of this very like heavy British accent, kind of punky songs, and he's now developed this kind of crooner, almost like Jarvis Cocker from Pulp, and he, in my mind, is probably the finest lyricist of this generation. I love the way he writes. Even when he's writing just a love song, he has this unique perspective. And obviously on this record, he's writing about stuff that, not many people are writing about. And his stage presence, I'm a pretty introverted guy, I never really liked the idea of being front and center. I like being in my studio, in my little cubby. But he made me realize that it's okay, I think, and Bowie did too, to kind of hide behind a character up there. And because, I mean, when I think about me, I don't think about anything interesting that anybody... I'm not James Brown, I'm not Mick Jagger, but if you put yourself into a character, I think there's something interesting about that. And he talks about this on this record, about wearing a mask to kind of tell the truth about yourself. And I think there's an interesting concept behind that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a freedom in the anonymity.
Yeah,
of it all,
exactly.
For lack of a better phrase.
So he kind of made me very interested in that concept.
Cool.
If you watch him on stage, he's a very dynamic guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huh. There's a guy named Todd Phillips that did a documentary on Phish, and he followed them around in '97.
Is he the same Todd Phillips that did the Hangover movies?
Maybe.
Oh, cool.
Maybe. I think so. So summer tour, and then they go to Europe, and then they come back and they have a 70,000 person festival in the Northeast, and 2 sets for three nights of 2 sets. So after set 1, they just, you don't see this, but they're walking back to their area, and there's some frustration, like they just couldn't make it click. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, we just need to relax. Everybody was so serious. And he's like, everybody's here. This is it's just our thing. And so then they have a great second set to close night 1, and they're walking back off stage, and they're like, that was so ripping. That was so tight. That was like James Brown we were playing like James Brown on his worst night. That's how tight
Which is anybody else's best night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's great.
That was a great record. I really enjoyed it.
I'm really glad. It was, like I said, a divisive record for a lot of Arctic Monkeys fans. A lot of people did not like it.
Well, I mean, this is the Arctic Monkeys record you come online to,
exactly,
there can be no disappointment.
Exactly. Well, and that's something that I aspire to with our records. And, I mean, maybe we don't have avid enough fans yet to truly piss them off. But I would hope that each record that we make, however many more records we do make, that we challenge ourselves and we're in some new territory that I would like to start the record and not know how it's going to come out.
Cool.
Which is what we've done with these last 2 records. And I would hope that people listening to it are at least a little challenged by it. Not that I want to intentionally, irritate them, but Josh Homme said something along the lines of, like, each new record, you should lose half your fan base and gain a new fan base. And I think
that's wise.
That's the way to do
I dig it. Well, great list. I appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah.
I've got a series of goofy questions.
Sure.
And then we'll get you out of here. So the first is, you get to have lunch with anyone of your choosing, dead or alive. Who are you choosing and why?
Oh, I'm so bad at these questions. Okay, well, I don't have a profound answer. I should probably have one ready. But, I mean, right now, I would have lunch with Leon Michaels. He's alive, and I would ask him a lot of very nerdy studio stuff.
Cool. Very cool. There are no right answers.
Okay.
I mean, you get everything from Albert Einstein's right-hand man to my grandpa. Everything in between. And so if you can pretend or imagine that we all have a personal and a professional bucket list, you're given all of the necessary resources to go out and hammer out your number ones on each of those lists. What are they?
The first one that came to mind when you said that is I'd love to play Red Rocks.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I think a lot of people say that, but it's just such a cool venue. We've hiked around Red Rocks.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
I don't even know if I want to go there as a spectator.
Okay.
I don't want to give
You
in.
do.
I probably do. But I want to play it. I want people to be there to see me playing there.
Cool. Yeah.
And then there's a whole laundry list of studios that I'd like to record in before I die.
Okay.
Leon's Big Crown would be one of them. Electric Lady would be one of them.
Cool.
It's all these classic studios. What else? What else would be on my bucket list? Gosh.
So, yeah, personal and professional. That felt like, was that 1-on-1 or was that 2 on one side?
It's all the same to
It's
me.
all the same. Oftentimes, oftentimes it is.
And maybe I would like to shoot and release a movie that I've shot on 16 millimeter film. It's a daunting thing for me right now, but I'm very interested in it.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That might be something.
You're given the ability to visit your past self at any age, also your choosing. What age are you choosing and what are you saying? And this is not cloaked in regret or trying to change, per se, who you became. But, just a quick...
It's tough. I think the bullshit answer would be to say that you should not think about what ifs and not change anything you've done, because you have, and you should know that those choices are what made you who you are.
Right.
But if I'm being honest, I would go back to myself in high school and say, don't take life so seriously. Go on a lot more dates with a lot more girls. Play some sports. Eat more fast food.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're aware that at one time there was a television program called Fear Factor?
Yes.
Hosted by Joe Rogan, where you do all these crazy things. So not for reality TV or for a challenge or whatever, but just a real life scenario in which the ultimate willies, spooks, heebie-jeebies for Cole Bales, what would it be?
There's so many things. I'm a pretty neurotic dude. Let's see. I'm trying to think of my biggest fears. I mean, any of the bug stuff, I'm just not doing it.
Right.
I'm off the show.
Right.
I could do worms.
Well, we're not on TV, but
right.
if you just found yourself...
I see there's no reward for me doing any of this.
You just have to get through it.
Okay.
Or else.
Or else.
No reward.
Okay. One of my biggest fears is tornadoes, which I know I live in the Midwest. It's not good. But they're just so uncontrollable and so terrifying. Golly, what else?
I remember around the time that Black Keys record came out, maybe whenever the Joplin stuff happened, I was still taking a paper subscription to the Star. And I remember one day just being like, my palms were so sweaty reading the tales of stuff people went through, like, somebody like leapt into their bathtub and within a fraction of a second, and that ended up being the thing that saved them, because everything else was just literally ripped. And I'm making this up, but the vanity from that bathroom was found 4 blocks, just like, holy shit, man.
Yeah.
This is terrifying.
They're so selective, but so unpredictable. I think that's what is so scary about them. They're so unpredictable. Yeah. My girlfriend loves to watch those videos. She watches them all the time, like to go to sleep too. And I'm like, why are you doing this? But one of my greatest fears has actually happened. So I have continual fears of like equipment malfunctions while I'm on stage.
Oh,
like really,
boy.
I mean, stuff happens all the time, but major ones, like my guitar just cuts out or my amp just goes out. On a Freedom of First show last year, I started the song. It was just a little guitar lick that started the song. First note I played, my G string breaks, which is pretty vital to everything I play in that band. And so it's supposed to be like the and all you hear is bah! And it just breaks. And I remember Chris looked back at me. He's like, "Okay, go get your backup guitar." I'm like, "What backup guitar?"
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. He's like, "Any strings you can change?" I don't have any strings. So I had to play the whole show, relearning everything on
the fly?
Yeah, on the fly.
Fuck
that I lived out one of my worst fears. Yeah.
I got to tell you, man, I have had several episodes where I lose video.
Yeah.
Or it cuts out, or what, you leave and I'm pumped because we did it.
Oh, man.
You came and gave me the time, and I put the car in and it's just nothing's pulling up. I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, that's always fun.
And then you got to tell the person, hey, dude, we still got the audio, but sorry. Like, oh.
Yeah, what do you do? Do you go back and redo it, or
how?
You just have an audio?
We can't do this exactly that same way.
No, you couldn't recapture that. Yeah.
So
I've had that happen recording the tape. I've had several incidents like that. There's been times it's just like negligence on my part. If you're doing overdubs on tape and you leave a track armed and you accidentally record that overdub, it's like, oh shit, I just erased the drum track for like 30 seconds. And so that's actually part of the reason why I got good at looping and pasting drum tracks.
Smart.
I've done that a couple times.
Yeah. All right, last but not least, please complete this for me.
Okay.
The world would immediately become a better place in which to live, if only...
Where to begin?
The Garden of Eden? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to keep it as apolitical as possible. But I'm going to say if we spent... How do I phrase this? Less time focusing on, I don't know, people's beliefs, their political beliefs, their religious beliefs, or whatever, and just realize that we're all kind of in the same pot. You know what I mean? Like, if we looked out for each other a bit more, if we realized that what's good for the whole is probably good for all of us, maybe it'd be a better place.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cole Bales, Blacklight Animals. We've got blacklightanimals.band.com, at Blacklight Animals Band on Instagram, Facebook, Bandcamp, where you stream, the May 1st gig at the RecordBar. Anything that you had hoped that we would cover that we did not?
I don't think so, man. I mean, we could get into all kinds of conversations about movies and other records.
Sure.
I mean, it was hard to narrow it down to these 5 records.
I know.
But no, I mean, I think we covered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other plugs?
Let's see. So we got the May 1st Blacklight Animals show. We've got May
at
2nd.
RecordBar.
At RecordBar with Papoose.
Ticket link in your Blacklight Animals
link. Yep.
IG bio.
Yep. And then we've got the Madrid, May 2nd. That's the Freedom Affair release show. Katie Guillen and the girls, Julia Hale. It's going to be great. And I think we've got another Blacklight Animal show May 9th at the Ship.
Nice.
So that's, I think, all we've got right now.
Very cool.
Yeah. And go listen to the record.
Yeah. Last Call Love Songs.
Last Call Love Songs.
And Playboys
of the Western World.
Yeah.
And if you're so inclined, buy some vinyl.
Yeah.
It's the best way to listen to.
Yeah. I meant to ask you, are you a vinyl person? Do you a mix of that and streaming?
It's a mix. I do more streaming than I'd like. I'd like to, but I'm on the road so much. That's where I consume a lot of new music, and that's how I keep up. Unfortunately, but it's a great way to discover new artists.
Yeah, very cool. Well, listen, man, I appreciate the time. It's 3:35, so we only went 5 minutes over, and
perfect.
Hopefully, you can get to your birthday party or
bocce ball.
Bocce ball.
Yes.
There you go. Much appreciated. Very nice to meet you, and talk to you soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much. That's fun, man. I really appreciate it.